Good morning, everyone. I hope you're well. Today is a Friday. I hope you're looking forward to the weekend. I certainly am. This has been a little bit of a tough week. I have had a few days of low energy, but we are pulling through and trying to do our best. So I hope you are too. Please continue to stay at home. I know the temptation to go out is immense, but it's important that we stay home, stay safe, and stay healthy. And as you know, I have a guest every day to help me with daily reflections. And today with me in the studio is Meeta Sengupta. Good morning, Meeta. How are you?
Good morning. Good because I'm talking to you now.
It's always lovely to talk to you. And, you're a very versatile person. I was just doing some prep and I realized, my goodness, you've had such an amazing career. You've been an investment banker, even a commercial banker, a researcher, an editor, teacher, school leader. You're a social media influencer and a writer, and God knows what else you do. So tell us a little bit about what makes you tick. How are you managing and juggling so many balls in the air?
Well, the trick to that is not all of them at the same time. So there is this very interesting philosophy, and I should shift my camera a bit. Yeah. There's a very interesting philosophy that says that some of us can have 7 careers in one life. And I thought that was very interesting. Firstly, that. And secondly, I knew there was a part of me that knew from the very beginning that I wanted to do something different. Now, this something different doesn't happens to every teenager. We all want to change the world. We all want to make a difference, but it doesn't actually make sense in terms of the opportunities that are available to us at that time. And so, what I did from the very beginning was pursue excellence and pursue learning. And it's that which continues to motivate me each time. When you know that you're going to do the best you can, and when you know that you're learning, so you're giving and you're taking, there is music in that. There's a beautiful music that happens when you're giving and taking. And then whatever opportunity comes your way, it rings true. Your career has had a lot of that too, hasn't it? Where you know this rings true. This is work for the soul. Where you,
Absolutely. And, I feel all your life's experiences actually culminate into, the final, not really the final job, but whatever you do later in life, it kind of brings that flavor, that perspective. And I would say also hones your journey towards your purpose because you've tried out a few different things and you now know for certainty, or I would say at least you can pinpoint what are the aspects of a particular issue you want to focus on.
that too. I also strongly believe that no good work done ever goes waste. Whether you like it or not, whether you think it's a miserable phase of your life, whether it is something that you're struggling to fight and get out of and find a change, whatever you're doing in that moment will come to rescue you another time. I mean, one little example. At college, I hated accountancy. When I did my MBA, uh, the assessments were crazy. All the engineers used to get the A's, and all the accountants used to get C grades in accountancy. And I was like, I'm never touching accountancy ever again in my life. I'm a finance person. I'm a learning person. I'm not an accountancy person. Give me economics any day, or give me the big picture change any day. And then I had my child, and I had decided to stay at home for a while. Within 2 months, my husband drove me down. He said, "You're driving yourself crazy. You're driving me crazy." He drove me down to a very tiny little community college where the job was to teach accountancy twice a week for 2 hours. And accountancy rescued me in a way because of course I knew my stuff. I knew how to communicate. I'd had amazing teachers all the way through. I had 7, 10 years of accountancy learning and practice. But I never expected it to be a part of my life, and I never expected it to be my first introduction to learning as a struggle. Because what had happened before that is I'd always worked in elite institutions. I'd gone from being a topper here to being in the best college, SRCC, going to IIM Ahmedabad, at London Business School. I taught after that, big brand names, JP Morgan, Tata, all of that. I'm very happy with that. But none of us, when we are really good with learning, actually engage in the process of learning. It seems to come automatically to us. And then when I went and taught in community college, and I had these brilliant students from really difficult circumstances sitting in front of me. Somebody was on day release from jail. Somebody had come in as a PhD in Iranian literature and was a refugee. Somebody had come in from the Iraq war, and Iraqis and Iranis sitting in the same class just at a very difficult time in their geopolitical life. It was an incredible learning experience where I was learning about learning. And that's what I realize makes me tick, learning about learning. How do we move on? How do we create that mobility in our lives? Whether it's social, personal, emotional, the key is to keep moving. You said you had a bad week. You know it's time to keep moving from that.
No, that's true. And, I mean, some days are good and some days are bad, and you have to acknowledge it and have to move on. And you have to identify the things that make you tick. And of course, daily reflections really sets the tone for my day. So I'm very excited to speak with you and learn more from you. Now you work at the cusp of policy and practice across education and the skill spectrum. And this is really a very important time, as you yourself said. I've put up your Forbes India link, the article. I would recommend everybody to go and read this, as well as the one that you posted today on Hindustan Times, where you're provoking people to think about this period and whether it is disrupting education. I mean, it has disrupted education, but is this the moment in time where we are going to radicalize the way we educate our children, approach education, and unbundle it, as you so said?
I certainly hope so. I certainly hope that now that we have come face to face with so many of our troubles or issues in regular education, both as a society, I mean, everybody who has access to the internet is part of this conversation today, right now. You and I are talking, we're having a live experience. We're sharing our experience. There'll be comments from the audience where all of us will emotionally react to it. Not just the learning, the emotional reaction is denied to those who do not have access to the internet. So, what are we doing in education? Leaving 90% of our children out of education right now? We were always doing it, but now that we are forced to be in the lockdown, it stares at us in the face. So many other things, rote learning, power play in the classroom. Teachers often, the best teachers have always been amazing. The best teachers have always encouraged learning beautifully. But the ones who are a little bit insecure, how does their insecurity play out in the classroom? It's amplified in the online space. If you're not sure of yourself, you try to be a bit more overt in your, uh, should I call it bullying? So all those problems have shown up. I mean, often it does. We know many students have had tough experiences. Good teachers know they have to avoid that. Good teachers know that emotional self control is part of their job. It's not possible every day and for everybody. We also acknowledge that. But we have this amazing mirror in front of our eyes right now. We have this opportunity to reflect in quiet. When we are away from that building, when we are away from the rules and the regulations, we've seen, or if the rules and regulations for getting up and rushing to school in the morning, that is our very identity as a mother, saying, I get everybody to school on time. This was our very identity as a student, saying, I make the bus on time and I'm always punctual and I've never missed one day. We're questioning our very identity and very core structures. If we can question that, then we can question everything and do it better. I'm not saying ditch it. I'm not saying schools will disappear. No, of course not. But the different parts of school that are visible, you're giving your homework on time. Is the content of the giving homework the important bit, or is it the fact that you were able to keep to your goals? That you were able to manage your time, that you were able to process and stretch yourself and do something that you could not do the previous day? Which one is more important here? The actual text of that answer doesn't really matter as much as your abilities that you developed in that moment. And this is what school is really about. You can unbundle all the bits I've said in the article. You can say content will go online, and you can say administration is just a software, like I said that. Of course it is. But the experience of personal growth is what I'm asking teachers and schools to realize, that this is what we're there for, to create these learning personal growth opportunities. Mobility at its core again. Emotional mobility, where you grow up a little bit every day. That's our chance right now to actually get it right. Forget about the rattabazi and the exams and the grades and everything. They'll come. As long as you're doing one step more, making one thing better every day.
Before we dive into the innovation part of it, I want to spend a moment thinking about this period of time and exposing the gaps. You very clearly said that education is soft infrastructure and needs the investment. And we do know that the bulk of our children do not have access to devices, they don't have access to the internet. And therefore, if this is going to be the new normal, where online is going to take precedence over physical schooling, shouldn't there be investment in, say, making digital infrastructure available to every child, making access to the internet a right, and also then upgrading the ability of teachers to teach in this kind of environment. It's not as simple as just taking something and making it online. We've tried to do it with our workshops, and we've realized it takes a lot of effort to make it interactive, make it interesting, because after 5 minutes, people switch off. So how do you keep the attention of a child?
It's really tricky. It's a whole new way of being. It's not as if it hasn't been there for the longest time. We've been FaceTiming with our friends and relatives. If you haven't met somebody for a long time, if there's an important wedding, birthday party, we have gone online and we have spoken to them. And so we know how to do it, but we don't know how to necessarily do it to a specific goal. Our teachers are often a little bit daunted, especially in the first 2 or 3 weeks. So let's also differentiate between crisis learning, crisis teaching and learning, and regular online teaching and learning. Right now, we just responded to a crisis. So, yes, mistakes are being made. Teachers have to learn how to do things differently. So, and it would really, really help if now we resolve to, as you rightly, thank you for picking that up, if we have the digital highways in place. If we have the digital highways in place, we will all be able to do so much better to reach every student and have real meaningful learning conversations with each of them. But how do we have these conversations? We are not in a dedicated box of a classroom anymore. Our box is that microwave, that doorbell, that pressure cooker whistle. Our box includes many other things. Now, interestingly, we recognize that our box includes many other things, but even in the classroom, I mean, if you remember all those lovely movies, the Stanley Ka Dabba, the movie about that autistic child with Amir Khan, please remind me of the name, where he was in his dream world half the time. All of us remembered times in class where our attention span was much, much shorter than the 40 minutes of the class. So it's not a new problem, it's just something that we have come face to face with suddenly. Our attention span, classically, as I was taught in my teacher training, is 7 minutes. And now, and this was many years ago, 20 years ago, and reducing. So now, for example, for digital teaching and learning, what I'm personally recommending, and it's new, so we don't have research, we don't have data yet. I'm recommending do a short video of 5 to 15 minutes. Do a tiny video of 5 to 15 minutes, explain the subject, and then get into a discussion. Keep the discussion live, keep it moving. Just like you do in your workshops. Activities have to be something that are visible on screen. See, if you're doing an activity where you make a triangle with your fingers, you make a heart with your fingers, that's an activity worth engaging in an online classroom, and that's digital pedagogy in place. But if you're asking students to turn away, write an essay for a 300-word essay, and then everybody's on screen scribbling away on paper, that's just not going to work. Screens are for the interaction part only. The others will have to be chopped and changed and done in different ways. So it's not as if we are doing different things. We are doing the same things, but doing them differently. We are doing things differently now. We are chopping and changing them differently. And that's what we need to adapt to. We are lucky we live in India, by the way. We adjust very fast.
Yeah,
Adjust to the
we are very resilient as a society, so we bounce back very quickly, and I hope that we learn from this current crisis and improve. My worry is that we might just go back to business as usual. The other discussion that we are having, and I run another talk series called Inclusive Cities, is on deurbanization, skilling at source at the rural areas, rethinking livelihoods so that we can flatten the economic inequality curve, etc. All these are, nice on paper, very difficult to implement, or maybe not so difficult. And part of it has to do with education. We've had a lot of money from CSR funds go into upskilling, but it's not necessarily translating into jobs. I do believe that it has, and I picked this up from your article as well, that the solution to India's opportunities lies in shifting from a constrained resource mindset to feeding unconstrained ambition. And how do you do that? Because our education in the most cases is rote learning. It's not learning by doing in a way. Maybe you're forced to invent yourself outside of the system. So how would you, what would be some of your recommendations, and how do you see it panning out post COVID or even during COVID?
So I actually want to go back to what you quoted, and thank you so much for putting it down there. Because when I write in a very dense manner, and when I speak, I try to speak um, as visually as possible. So when we're talking about a constrained resource mindset, we have so far actually struggled with understanding that we are not limited to learning in the classroom. We are not limited anymore by learning upskilling. For example, if you're training on a lathe machine, you're not limited by the number of demo machines that are available in your skilling factory or the sewing machine. It doesn't matter. You do have online ways of learning the same thing. Those softwares, those technologies are available. You can replicate virtual machines to infinity. So your ability to learn, train, and upskill. You can practice your social skills, which is also an essential employability skill. Your negotiation skills, your selling skills. You can replicate them using voice bots, using software, using tutors who come online and are not restricted to their location anymore. Those constraints that we used to imagine and were definitely a part of our past are not a part of our past. If our ambition today is is to, for example, work for Google in Silicon Valley, that is not something that is unattainable anymore. So what our potential, identifying our potential is now about first dreaming, yes, but also about creating those structures that actually understand the level of quality and rigor that we need to deliver. And that I have noticed in some countries that have done really well comes from a sense of pride in the work we do. We have a very different notion of pride when it translates to Indian languages, but I have seen this where a bricklayer is so proud of that perfect wall laid that will stand for 100 years. That pride in getting it right, that pride in creating something with precision, is so much so that it is a work of beauty and art. That is an aesthetic conversation that we have not had in India yet. And I think we need to do that. Aesthetics, we know, are actually about science. Aesthetics come from getting that next stroke right in your painting, of having those, you're a singer. When you sing to perfection, you know you have put in 10, 15, 20 years in getting that note right. There are the musicians who have rebelled in school and run and said, I will not do my homework. They don't succeed just because they do about 10, 10, 10 on their guitars or because they play the air guitar. They actually succeed because they know the technicalities. And that's hard work. That's as hard as learning your science formulae or getting your math exam right to 100 upon 100. A musical note is as precise as a mathematical note. That rigor in our work, that passion for our to get it right, that ability to do that little bit extra, and the motivation to do that, to create that music, like I said in the beginning, to create that music in everything that we do so that our heart sings when we get it right. That is the kind of India I want to see. That's the kind of world I want to see. Where we love what we do, and then we do a bit more, and then we do it a bit better. That's learning.
Coming back to the infrastructure that is necessary to reform the education sector, like you just said, and bring it to a standard that you know will fulfill your dream. Do you think that we should also have some of those Atal tinkering labs for younger children? I think it's a good thing that the government of India is encouraging universities to have these innovation centers within their setups. But I feel the younger age group is very interesting to work with because they have an uncluttered mind. They are not influenced by others. So they can really think out of the box. And if we catch them young, between 12 and 17, I feel we can foster a culture of innovation. And I say this because at Red Dot, we've been running youth innovation challenges. And initially, it was from 18 years to 30 years. And we got a bunch of applications, very interesting applications from 15 years upwards. And then we said, you know what, let the judges pick. And several 17-year-old teams were picked in the top 10 teams, and we put them through an incubation process. And two of those 17-year-old teams won the challenge. So I felt, and it made me question, like, why am I doing it for 18-year-olds? If they can come up with great ideas, let's, level the playing field. But of course, we have to invest a little more in their capacity building. But what is your thought on that? Like, rather than rote learning, really changing that curriculum to say, okay, let's I mean, we have this culture of jugaad, right? Why not formalize it in the education space?
Yeah, yeah. No, we have this opportunity. We already have students who are very, very creative. We have incredible brains in the country. And we do have structures that often dampen their abilities in order to be able to deliver to the whole group rather than to the individual. So the first step that we need to do is we need to create the infrastructure that enables a little bit more customization for personal potential. And I think that's going to be so that Maker Labs, for example. Maker Labs has been trying to come to India for a while. That's a sort of Maker Labs are often available in community spaces. You don't have to link it to a school or university. Of course, as part of a school or university, you probably should have automatic access to that. You have other structures like Raspberry Pi clubs. The whole world has looked at India and said, gosh, India has taken over the entire software space. We have to claw our space back. Let's get our children into coding. And little children across the world are coding because they want to beat India. What is India doing in its school curriculum? Teaching the same C++, etc. What is a computer input, output, black box, blah, blah, blah. Now, there's a whole other revolution that's happening in India itself in computer teaching, where you're talking about where you're talking about puzzles, where you're talking about logical thinking, critical thinking, all of these, the sequencing of things, and all of these actually add up to the kind of code and solutions that you will create. So whether it is in the real world with real physical objects in innovation, or whether it is in the virtual world with solutions that put together logical thinking and create better pathways for growth, this has to start young because kids, but it has to start with a sense of fun. Our schools are often so devoid of fun and laughter. The best teachers always ensure there's some laughter. And when somebody is going to walk in and saying, "What is this noise happening in your classroom?" It's not noise. It's growth. As long as it is aligned to learning. So one thing I again learned from another senior person at one of these conferences was that if you're only consuming and repeating, you're not doing anything worthwhile. But if you are building and creating, you're producing, then your learning is actually worthwhile. Then you are putting it to use. And I think so far our learning, I'll come to the innovation bit in half a sentence. So far our learning has been about consuming learning. Our teachers are giving it to us, we are absorbing it and drinking it. What you're talking about is two parts. One, application of that learning, and secondly, application of that learning in an innovative manner. So, what is innovation? Innovation has three parts. It's about jugaad, which means it's about a disruption, a pain point, and somebody says, "Oh, I can bridge this." But the first bridge that you put on that just might be a log of wood. It won't stand, it won't sustain. So, what is the process to make a sustainable solution that will serve the person who had that pain point? How do we bridge that disruption? Now, this is a creative process. This is a creative process with the rigor. I mean, this is how the Apple phone was made. This is how all beautiful objects the earphones that you were made. There's somebody who said, "This doesn't work for me. I'm not able to connect. I'm not able to hear." And somebody else said, "Let me find a solution, but let me find a solution that works consistently." Works consistently is an act of science where you are
And
able
also
to
it
create
would
successful. So that's
and it would
innovation.
also
Innovation plus replicability.
and it would also make the children more comfortable with failure, because through this creative process they are rapidly prototyping, testing. It doesn't work, we go back to the drawing board, fix whatever things that they can. And because currently this sense of failure is so overwhelming to a lot of kids that they take it to the extreme level, and the rate of suicide is very high.
That's
I
very
know that the expectation is always to excel, and sometimes academics is not your focus. You may be good at sports or music, or you could be good at creating, which is totally different.
you could be good at anything. There is no such thing as failure. It's always the next step. And if you fail at something, that's a signal that maybe this is not for you. But failure as is not. There's always another chance. I mean, I think children should chant this every morning. There's always another chance. Even in academics, give them 10 chances to do the class 10 exam again. Give them 3 chances to do the class 12 exam. Give them different types of exams. Give them multiple subjects. The more chances you give for success, the less important each tiny little failure becomes. Low stakes testing is the way forward for younger classes, definitely, but even for seniors. Give them more chances and give them chances at different things so that they can that prove to others that they are worthy of the next opportunity. You always need some support for the next opportunity. We all know that. Some of us are able to lend a helping hand, some of us are not. But failure is just a step. Failure is always saying, it's time for taking another chance. That's what failure means. Next chance, on. Let's try it.
What about values-based education? Because we had last week we had this whole episode about the boys' locker room, and I know you have worked a lot on curricula around safe and inclusive schools, putting in protocols that will protect children from abuse, etc. Can you share a little bit about your thoughts on that topic?
So at one stage, I used to run this thing called the School Safety Campaign, and it was a project in trying to ask schools to engage with the safety conversation. In a way, the campaign can be declared a success because now we do have rules and regulations about barbed wires around schools, about entry of outsiders into schools. We have CCTVs in schools. I'm not sure if that's the right way forward for safety and for because we still have had incidents of children harming other children. The boys' locker room was another incident where teenagers harmed each other inadvertently. And maybe we should be having deeper conversations about safety. We should be having more open conversations about the desires and aspirations of our teens. There's nothing shady about wanting or exploring your boundaries. There's nothing shady, nothing wrong about that. But there is something terribly, awfully, horribly creepy if you want to tell lies, if you want to hide, if you want to say things in a way that is less than honest. Then we are into creepy land. And right now, honestly, we are into creepy land in schools. Some schools have really honest conversations between boys and girls, and I've found very healthy relationships over there. And these people continue as friends for 20, 30 years beyond school. That's the kind of healthy, open conversation we want. None of these conversations cross the lines of decency. You don't even have to use bad words or bad language to have honest conversations. But you do need to create a safe space to have simple conversations about limits, about boundaries, about consent, about desires, and we're not having these conversations yet because we're scared that we won't be able to put a boundary to these conversations. We want to control it. This control mindset is gone. Let's just acknowledge the age of control is gone. We are in a more egalitarian space. We include. We have to talk.
Thank you for that. I do believe that we have to create more safe spaces to have these conversations, and parents have an equal responsibility. It can't be only the schools that have that responsibility.
Right?
Uh, yeah, I know you have a very busy day, and you've been, pulled in all directions with, to share your wisdom on this topic. It's a very important topic for all of us, especially when we are talking about the future of our children and the future of even India in terms of economic development. I wanted to ask you, how are you taking care of yourself during COVID-19? What are your strategies?
I sleep. I love sleeping. Sleeping is a hobby. My little child had written this in his class one essay. My mummy's hobby is sleeping. But no, honestly, I sleep 4 times a day. Every time I do something major, I just take a very quick power nap, and I've trained myself to an 8 minute or 18-minute nap. It took a few years to train myself, where I just regenerate and then say, okay, it's time for the next plunge, and then I'm able to put in a very high amount of energy into that next activity. Because even if I write with a great deal of intensity and passion when I write. So maintaining that sense of being alive. Again, the first word I use, that sense of being mobile, where every little part of me, I'm sorry, I moved the camera. Yeah, not that much mobility. Some stability is good. So that combination of sleep and just switching off, reading a bit, and and then maintaining all that I do within my energy envelope is how I'm coping with it. It's working.
Sleep is so underrated. I think, people should really invest in sleep. And if it works for you during the day as well, power naps are great to recover your energy. So try that 8 minute. I know somebody who used to recommend 7 minute power nap. So, um, you know, try
Yeah,
it out.
I'm lazy. I'm lazy. It's just 1 minute more. That one snooze.
Well, I don't think it's lazy. I think you have to, you have to listen to your body And if your body is saying you need a break, you need to take that break. And I come from the state of Goa, so we have a power nap every afternoon, and we are a susegat culture, so it's
Yeah.
always go slow, take it
Um,
easy, go slow. It's part of the culture over there. I had a T-shirt that once said, in Goa, time stands still, and it's true.
well, we are in the middle of a time standstill phase right now, where the whole world is waiting for us. And I love this moment, actually, again, the lockdown is such a positive space because time is standing still and saying, go do whatever you want to do, take that rest, take that moment to reflect, take that moment to be yourself in any which way you want to be. Because now, soon we're going to have to start running again. You want to run, you run. You want to rest, you rest. You want to regenerate, you regenerate. Want to revive, reinvent. Do that now. Do that now. But physically also speaking, and in terms of science, yes, sleep actually does a lot for healing as well. Our body cells actually regenerate when they're sleeping. A lot of our illnesses, etc., are depend a lot on rest. Post flu, everyone is recommended rest. So just building it into the structure of the day in different ways is, I think, a part of how one can continue to remain high energy for the things that matter.
Wonderful. So, on that note, thank you, Meeta, for sharing your words of wisdom with us. I think this was such a fascinating conversation, especially the last bit about sleep. I don't think we have spoken about sleep in all these episodes. So, yes, it's very, very important to just use this time in whatever way it regenerates you, rejuvenates you, and refreshes you. So, we have a few days left of the lockdown, or maybe we might have more, who knows. But at this point in time, live for the moment and stay safe, healthy, and be happy. Thank you, Meeta. Have a
Thank
wonderful
you.
day.
You have a great day too. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have just two more episodes left, so do join me tomorrow at 10 a.m.
Love to.